So Sony shut down their Spider-Man universe, the universe without Spider-Man, but we knew it was only going to be a matter of time until they tried to pick it back up again. And a new report tells us that they are actually going to use something that is happening in the MCU to restart their universe that is not a part of the MCU. So essentially, a reboot of the Sony Spider-Man universe is on the table. And this time, it sounds like they are actually trying to include a Spider-Man in their Spider-Man universe.
It's a bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see if it pays off for them.
That's right. Right now, Sony is already talking about doing another Spider-Man universe. But there is some good news here. Sony really has ended the Spider-Verse that they created before with Venom, Morbius, Madam Web, and Kraven the Hunter. Sony had an untitled Marvel film originally scheduled for June 27th of 2005 that they put on their studio slate. They have now removed that. So for right now, that universe that we knew before really is dead. Yes, I know that Venom 3 set up Null, but Tom Hardy, the actor who plays Venom, and Eddie Brock did say that that was his last Venom film. Now, of course, a lot of us believe that he will indeed return as Venom, but a lot of us think that he's going to return as Venom in the MCU. And before Marvel Studios made a lot of changes to the Spider-Man 4 script, we did get a lot of reports telling us that Venom is going to appear in Spider-Man 4 and possibly Null as well. And that still could be the case. And in fact, it sounds like Sony is going to kind of rely on the multiverse saga in the MCU to kind of help out their Sony Spider-Man universe, which honestly isn't a terrible move by Sony. Ride the Marvel hype train, or I should specify the MCU hype train, because the movies that they did release were Marvel, they just weren't done by Marvel Studios. And of course, they weren't based in the MCU. So yeah, it makes sense that Sony would want to grab any type of hype or positivity from the MCU that they could. But if what we're hearing ends up being what they do decide to actually do, it sounds like there could be quite a bit of hope for this new Sony Spider-Man universe. Something that I didn't think I'd be saying anytime soon, but here we are. According to industry insider Alex Perez, what Kevin Feige said about Miles Morales coming to the MCU might not actually happen. The reason being for that, you guessed it, Sony wants Miles. In a recent Q&A on the CosmicCircus.com, Alex Perez was asked what the plans are for Miles Morales, since Kevin Feige did say that after Spider-Man Beyond the Spider-Verse is over, he wants Miles in the MCU. And they asked if he could possibly appear in the Marvel's Champion series that is coming up. And the Champion series is the Young Avengers. It's just a different name for the Young Avengers in the MCU. And Alex Perez responded with no. And the reason why is Miles, according to the information I currently have, so please take this with a grain of salt, is going to be set in a rebooted Sony universe that's set to be established after Secret Wars. Now, interestingly enough, if you put this all out on paper, it does make sense. And one thing that it also does very much imply is that the ending of the multiverse saga, Avengers Secret Wars, will give us the destruction of the MCU as we know it, the end of the multiverse, but the rebirth of a new universe. One that everybody is very excited about, a universe where the X-Men, the Fantastic Four, and the Avengers and everybody can exist together. Except for Sony, and apparently Miles Morales, because Sony wants them to be the new lead Spider-Man of their new universe. Now, I actually did hear about this not too long after Sony announced that they were basically done with their Spider-Man universe. And this is actually a pretty logical thinking process for Sony. Their live-action Spider-Man adjacent universe, as I always call it because it doesn't have a Spider-Man in it, even though they have literally teased a Spider-Man being in it. Remember the mural of Spider-Man from the Morbius trailer that was never actually in the movie? Or how the original script for Madam Web actually did have a Spider-Man in it. Originally, it was supposed to be Andrew Garfield, then the timeline didn't work out, so they changed it to Tom Holland Spider-Man, but that didn't work out as well. Just a disaster. But their Spider-Man universe without Spider-Man in it failed, and they are starting to finally realize that this is the problem. And they have actually kind of proven that they can make a good Spider-Man movie with their Into the Spider-Verse films. Now, of course, they are animated, but the writing and the story is there. The characters are there as well. And some insanely good news that we got is that Sony Pictures CEO Tony Vinciquerra has stepped down and is going to be succeeded by Ravi Ahuja. And this is great news because Tony clearly didn't really understand what the fans want. In fact, in an interview when talking about his run as Sony Pictures CEO and talking about those Spider-Man films, he literally said that Madam Web and Kraven the Hunter were not bad films. They were just received poorly due to negative press and criticism, not their actual quality. And while we are all entitled to our own opinions, that just really isn't reality. And the actress Dakota Johnson, the star of Madam Web herself, even said when she was flaming Sony in an interview that the executives and higher-ups at Sony do not understand what the fans want and that there's a big disconnect there. And Tony's statement here just proves that. And look, if you liked Madam Web and Kraven the Hunter, that's awesome. But these were not high-quality films, and they could have been done so much better, and they could have been done insanely more better if a Spider-Man was included. So with the stepping down of Tony Vinciquierra, we kind of got the end of that whole entire Spider-Verse that they were doing before. But of course, they own the rights to Spider-Man and the characters, and they're not just going to give those up, and they have to continue to make movies or they will lose the rights because that was a part of their contract when they bought the rights. I know most of us wish that they would just sell the rights back to Marvel Studios, but Sony is a huge company and they need to make money, and they're not going to sell the rights to Spider-Man back to Marvel Studios. At least it sounds like not anytime soon. But now there are new people in charge, and it seems like what they're talking about is how fans didn't like the fact that Spider-Man was nowhere to be found in any of these movies. Movies with Spider-Man villains without Spider-Man. So they realized what they need. Spider-Man. Big surprise there. And if they go the same route that they did with the Into the Spider-Verse movies, they can actually make a really good live-action Spider-Verse. I think. Maybe. If they get Phil Lord and Christopher Miller to go into the new live-action Spider-Verse that they're planning to make and handle Miles Morales in this Spider-Verse, it could work because they know Miles Morales, they know his stories, and they know what fans want. So just like Marvel Studios has brought back the Russo brothers and Stephen McFeely to take over Avengers Doomsday and Avengers Secret Wars, and it actually sounds like a big part of the next saga with the X-Men as well, if Sony took a play from their book, they would bring in Phil Lord and Christopher Miller to essentially handle the launch of their new Spider-Verse because they have already proved that they could write a good Miles Morales Spider-Man movie. So if you're gonna have a new Spider-Man universe, you definitely need to start off with a Spider-Man movie. And if it's gonna be Miles, you should definitely have these two writing it. If they do this, we'll get at least one good movie. If they don't stand in the way. That seems to be Sony's biggest problem, at least in the past. They get in their own way because the executives think that they know more than the creatives. And not all the time, but typically the creatives are the ones who know most about the characters. And again, after Madam Web, Dakota Johnson said this. She said that the script that she read originally, which she liked, was nothing like the final product that they saw on screen. So the executives came in and changed a bunch. So the good news is there's a new CEO, and if he can just manage to kind of stay out of the way and hire the right people to do an amazing job, then they actually could come out with a pretty decent universe, perhaps maybe even a great universe. Now the sad thing about this is we might not get Miles in the MCU. I still think we could obviously get him in Avengers Secret Wars. And it sounds like, because he already said so, Kevin Feige does want Miles in the MCU. So since their universe is done right now, and they are reportedly going to use the events of Secret Wars to start a new universe, they could still have Miles in Avengers Secret Wars and take that same Miles and just give him his own universe. That would actually be kind of cool. The birth of a new Sony universe would actually be coming from the MCU, and it would be cool to have future crossovers between Tom Holland's Spider-Man and Miles Morales. Tom has expressed many different times that he would love to mentor Miles Morales, and we've been hearing that Miles could appear in Spider-Man 4, and that might be the strategy. An agreement between Sony and Marvel until Secret Wars. So he appears in Spider-Man 4, appears in Avengers Doomsday, and then after, once the multiverse does sort of a reboot, he goes to his own universe. And what's interesting is this is kind of the opposite of what happens in the 2015 Secret Wars comics. Miles Morales in Secret Wars originally is not from the main Earth 616 universe, but at the end, when it gets reset, set, Molecule Man does him a kindness and actually puts him in the 616 universe. He does him a kindness because he was really hungry and Miles gave him a cheeseburger. So this is almost like the opposite. Perhaps Miles could start off in the MCU, but then goes to his own universe. Either way, there is potential, and if this all ends up being true, it is good to hear that they are at least going to have a Spider-Man in their new universe. Will it be good? Who knows? It does have the potential, but it is Sony, so we'll have to wait and see on that. But go ahead, let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. Do you see this as a win, or do you kind of just wish that they would just step aside and just kind of let it die? Let me know your thoughts on that, and please don't forget to like this video and subscribe so you don't miss out on any of the latest Marvel news, rumors, or leaks. You can find us on Instagram, Twitter, and Facebook, and as always, thank you all so much for watching. Woof woof.